there's two parts to this talk. There is the climate science and there is the social science and what we're going to do about the climate science. Okay? Climate science, I was a scientist for 25 years. I was the first in my family of 50 cousins to go to university and get a degree because I've been passionate about this stuff since 1985. And because I'm a scientist and because I'm a father, I gave up my job as a scientist 5 years ago to campaign full time. So I currently volunteer full time with Just Stop Oil because the climate science is so fucked up now. It's so terrifying that being a scientist isn't enough. Writing reports, do more study, it's not enough. We need to work together to form a civil resistance community, and that's what we're doing with Just Stop Oil. We're a community, and I'm going to talk more about that in the second part of the talk when I talk about social science. So that's me and why I'm here. And there's a couple of, so there's three things we need to know about the climate science. The first thing is that it is way worse than you think. So I guess everyone here is here because you have an idea that there was a problem with the climate. Yeah? Has everyone got an idea of that?
Yep.
Yeah?
What?
The climate.
What? Pardon?
There's a bit of a problem with the climate.
No, never.
Does everyone acknowledge that? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Of course we do, that's why we're here. However, the first part of this talk is that it's far worse than we realise. Why is it far worse than we realise?
Because no one listened to Greenpeace 45 years ago.
Yes. And
Industrial revolution.
the
Mankind has evolved. There's only 4% of the world is left in its natural habitat.
yeah. So even the climate scientists haven't been telling us the truth because we're all in soft denial on some level. So climate change is not just like there's people in hard denial like Julia Hartley-Brewer who doesn't even believe that climate change is a problem. There is also all of us on the other part of the spectrum somewhere where this is an existential threat, but we're not like actually acting like it. On some level, we just like rationalise it and carry on with business as usual. I was a scientist for 25 years, paid to tell the truth, and now for 5 years I've been full-time campaigning, trying to tell the truth. And every day I forget we're in an existential threat, and I just carry on with my ordinary life. So I know for a fact that we're all in soft denial on some level. It's not to beat ourselves up about that, it's just about, the idea is we're all here to tell the truth, yeah? Is that what we're here for? Are we up for that? Telling the truth?
Tell the truth.
It's the most important thing anyone can do at this point in human history is to tell the truth. But it's not easy. It's like the most challenging thing because the truth is so horrific.
Devastating.
It's devastating. So what's really important is that we don't try and do it on our own. So when we are facing the truth and stripping away our layers of soft denial, that we do that in a group. And that's why we always try and after I've given a little talk, we'll have a little go round where we hear from everyone about how we're all feeling so that we don't feel alone about this. And it's why the second part of the talk is about what we can do together about this. Okay. So that's the first thing, it's worse than we thought, right? Partly because of soft denial, partly because the climate scientists haven't been telling us the truth. And so I know that for a fact because you've heard of this idea of 1.5, keep 1.5 alive. Have you heard about that? So in the Paris big conference in 2015, the world's climate scientists, the world's government, policymakers, the media, they were all there in Paris in 2015, and it was hailed as the landmark success of the climate movement. Because, hello, do you want to join us?
Yes, please.
Great. Come and have a seat.
But I mean, what does 1.5 mean anyway? It's already too much.
Just waiting
And
for
anyway,
somebody to
like,
join.
it's never going to be stuck to, and it was already a failure before it began.
You can sit there if you want.
Ladybug's coming in here.
Oh, well, maybe,
Ladybug's just coming in.
I'm
here.
cool. I'm cool.
Yeah.
You've just got to have a really loud voice.
Look, come here, look, come here, there you go.
So, get in. Have
That's going to be better. Because I'm all,
Yes, please.
yeah, help yourself with that. It's a bit moreish.
He's like, I
just
can't
to
come in because I'll end up saying something.
Okay. What's your name?
Oh, Jenny.
Jenny. Nice to meet you, Jenny. So I'm going to give a little talk, and in order to get through all of the talk, I would ask that we save any questions till the very end, because we want to hear from everyone. And we find that if we get into a Q&A thing too early, it ends up not everyone gets to speak. So what we do is I'll give a little talk about the climate science and the social science, then we'll have a little go round. Then we'll hear from someone share their experience, maybe Ladybug, about why we take action together, or Ari, or Autumn.
Harry.
I don't mind.
Okay, so
Gary's been to Cos first.
Yes.
I just noticed.
Yeah.
No,
So,
sorry, you
it's
go on,
okay.
you
So
get on
I'm
with it.
going to talk, then we'll hear from one of these lot, they'll decide who, and then we'll hear from everyone, okay? And hopefully any questions you have will be answered throughout that process. If they're not, I'm going to stay around, you can ask me questions then. So we can save questions till then. Is that okay for everyone?
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're here to tell the truth, even though that might be uncomfortable, yeah? So the first bit about the climate science is really upsetting, because it's way worse than we think. We know it's a problem, but actually it's devastating. Because the climate scientists haven't been telling us the truth, they've been dumbing it down, because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to risk their careers by upsetting people too much, okay? And I know that for a fact because they confessed it in a paper that's published, and also then we had a one-to-one Zoom with one of them, one of the best climate scientists in the world, and we said, why haven't you been telling us the truth? And he said, because we don't want to rock the boat. He looked really embarrassed, really sheepish, and he said it's because we don't want to rock the boat. So what's really interesting is we've got someone like Professor Sir David King. He was the Chief Scientific Officer for the UK. He's one of the top climate scientists in the world. And he was the main man advising all of our politicians from Blair, Brown, Cameron and May. And what does he say? He's retired now, he's no longer the Chief Scientific Officer. What he says is the decision, he said in February 2021, he said, the decisions we make in the next 3 to 4 years will determine the future of humanity. Whether we get to live or die, whether we have an inhabitable future, will be shaped by the decisions we make. And now he said that 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago. So now in August 2023, we've got 2 years left maximum to make a difference. That's what the science is saying. It's not just Professor Sir David King, it's also the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. That's the world's top scientists. That's the scientific consensus. What they say is what most of the world's scientists think. It's the best science humanity's ever created, because there's thousands of them, all questioning, challenging and making sure that we're on track. And what they say is, again, do you want to come in? We can squeeze around, come on.
Oh, thanks.
What's your name?
Mike.
Mike, nice to meet you, Mike. I'm Larch.
Yep.
Just giving a little talk, so it's about climate science,
Yep.
and then the second part of the talk is what we can do about it, about the social science, okay?
Some fuzz.
And we've got, we're going to hear from everyone before the end of this session, and if you haven't, save any questions to the very end, after we've heard from everyone. That's what we're asking.
That's how I know.
Okay, so the climate science, we're saying, is worse than everyone. We know it's bad, but it's way worse than we think, because it's being dumbed down by the scientists, it's been dumbed down by the media, it's been dumbed down by the politicians. We know we can't trust the politicians. They won't even tell us the truth if they had cheese and wine at a party or not. You remember Partygate? So, the world's top scientists are saying we've got 2 years left to make a meaningful difference. If we carry on with business as usual for 2 more years, we lock in climate collapse. Because we know now, we've had tens of thousands of peer-reviewed papers spelling out the details of the climate science for decades. We know now how it works, right? We burn fossil fuels, we enhance the greenhouse effect, and it's going to change our weather systems. And it's already happening, okay? We just had in Italy 50 degrees heat. In Sicily and another small area near Sicily, there were 1,600 wildfires at the same time, all going on. Just literally, Sicily was on fire because it got so hot. We just had that in India, 3 weeks of 50-degree heat. Everything melts. The wiring melts, the roads melt. Okay, so it's way worse than we think. We're talking about societal collapse if we don't make the right decisions in the next 2 years. This is why I, as a father, as a scientist, gave up my job very reluctantly, because I want to do what I can in the time we've got left. We've only got 2 years. Sitting in a desk writing papers is not going to cut it. We need to be organising together. Okay. So the first thing is it's way worse than we think. We've got 2 years left. The second thing is that we've got this paper that's just come out, Tim Lenton, world's top journal, Nature. So if we discovered a cure for cancer, it would be written about in Nature, the top journal, right? He just published a paper in Journal of Nature in April this year, and that paper says that we are heading for 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature rise by 2030. And when we get there, we're already at 1.2 global heating, yeah? So when
What month was that?
April 2023, Tim Lenton in Nature. I can help you find the reference if you want.
No, it's alright, that'll be enough.
You should be able to find it with that. And he said, yeah, by 2030, we will have hit 1.5, and all of the scientists agree with that now. This is what the science is saying. By 2030, we're going to hit 1.5, because we're already at 1.2, it's accelerating. And when we hit 1.5, that will mean 2 billion people will live in areas of the world that are uninhabitable. It's too hot for the human body. We cannot dissipate the heat. When it gets too hot, our organs break down. Our body stops functioning properly and we die. So by 2030, 1 billion people, that's 1,000 million people, will be on the move. There'll be refugees fleeing for survival. This is what's coming down the line if we carry on with business as usual for 2 more years. Okay? This isn't some random stuff. This is the top science that humanity has created. And so that level of migration, refugees, is the worst disaster, will be, if we don't stop it, the worst disaster humanity has ever known, and it will mean that no one can escape the consequences of that. Because imagine 5 million refugees in the Syrian refugee crisis put the whole of Europe in turmoil. It gave us Brexit, because the refugee crisis was one of the things they stoked the fear over Brexit. It gave us dictatorships, right-wing dictatorships in parts of Europe. So that's what 5 million people did. It's how disruptive it is. And of course you get a massive number of those people dying in that process of those people moving. But what you're going to see with 1,000 million people, 1 billion people migrating, is societies cannot cope with that. It's going to be a massive lurch to the right, with fascist dictatorships popping up, using that disruption to jump to power. They're already starting to do it. And imagine look at how we're dealing with refugees now, right? We want to put them on the Bibi Stockholm barge. We want to stop them getting over here, send them back, they're saying. Imagine when you've got a billion refugees and we are struggling to feed ourselves. We are struggling to deal with the heat ourselves. You're going to have governments calling and people calling for them to be shot at the borders. You're going to have them let the boat sink. You're going to have whole boatloads of people sinking and dying. Imagine what this world is going to feel like to live in this world as society collapses because the climate is breaking down. This is not a world we want to live in. This is a parent, this is what motivates me. I don't want my children to be living in that horror in 2030 and beyond. So that is what motivates me. So basically, this is what we have a choice, right? Because what they've done is they've encouraged us to think of ourselves as individuals. This is what they've done since Thatcher, since 1979. It's like we're all just individuals, and everyone, when you're concerned about climate change, the first thing people think is what? Well, what's my carbon footprint? What am I doing? What could I do differently? We need to forget that shit, because the concept of carbon footprint was invented by BP to keep us in our place, to take the attention away from them. They are the culprits. They are the ones that are pushing fossil fuels. Okay? So the bad news is we've got 2 years left, and it's going to be the worst horrors imaginable if we don't make those decisions in the next 2 years. The good news is we have power. We have so much more power than we are taught. We have so much more power than they led us to believe. And we have that power not as individuals, but when we come together. And that is the good news. The social science proves it. Think about all of the rights that we take for granted. Think about the right to vote, the right to roam, the right to a weekend. The rights that we take for granted did not get given to us because we asked nicely. The powers that be only ever give us some of their power when we demand it. And we come together as a group fearlessly, working through the fear barriers and say we're gonna cause so much discomfort for you, disruption to you, if you don't give us these demands, then it's going to be much easier for you to just give us those demands. And that's how we got the rights that we take for granted. It's how we ended slavery, it's how we got the right to vote for men and then for women, how we got equality, all of the things, all of the progress that we've gained over the last 150 years. It's largely been through this mechanism. So that's the good news. Because there's many tangible examples of that. Anti-fracking, anti-genetics, there's just many examples where we have brought about this change. The civil rights movement in America is a great example of it. In America, in 1963, Martin Luther King and a load of other organisers, they led this consistent campaign. Who here has heard of Birmingham, Alabama, 1963? Anyone heard of that? A few people. There was a massive, consistent campaign. They started it in April, carried on for weeks, people going on marches. Within the first 8 days, they were marching to end segregation. Birmingham in Alabama was the most segregated city in America, so they chose the most segregated city with non-violent disruption to really kind of create that pressure for change. They didn't choose a moderately segregated city, they chose the worst place, where the backlash against them would be the worst, where they were risking getting put in prison. And many of them did get put in prison. Within 8 days of them marching, just going on these marches, they banned the marching. They created an injunction that said, if you break this injunction, you go to prison. Martin Luther King went to prison. They say, well, you might have heard of the famous letter from Birmingham jail. Martin Luther King. Have a look if you've not read it or heard it. It's a powerful letter that he wrote when he was in solitary confinement in prison in Birmingham, Alabama, for just going on a march because he was defying the injunction. And this parallels with this and what we're doing with Just Stop Oil are incredible because we learn from all of these examples throughout history where ordinary people like us have brought about this change. We put that into practice. So what we know from these examples is you need a very clear, simple, no-brainer demand, and that's what we have with Just Stop Oil. Our demand is that we have no new oil, coal or gas. And this is such a no-brainer. We've just heard about the climate science, right? How desperate it is. In the face of that, we need to stop new oil, coal and gas. Hey, are you right? Do you want to come and sit in here? We can maybe leave you and sit somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, here, yeah. Come over here, yeah.
Oh, no, there's a chair.
Okay, there we go. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Shane.
Shane.
What's yours?
Nice to meet you. I'm Larch. So just part way into this talk, talking about the climate science and how it's way worse than we think because the science has been dumbed down. We're all in soft denial on some level, and the science is actually saying we've got 2 years left to stop it from going up, emissions, or we're locking societal collapse because of climate breakdown. And it's absolutely terrifying. Yeah. The good news is that the social science shows that ordinary people like us, if we come together, we can make a difference. And we know that from all of the successful campaigns throughout history. And so what we're doing with Just Stop Oil is learning from all of those campaigns throughout history. Okay? So we have a simple demand, which is no new oil, coal and gas. Has anyone here heard of the International Energy Agency? Probably not, no. It's the world's definitive body on energy, right? They set energy policy for the last 50 years. What they said in May 2021 is that we have to stop all new licensing, new consents and new exploration for new fossil fuels starting immediately, starting in May 2021. That's the definitive body of the experts on energy because of the climate crisis. We've got more than enough fossil fuels in the pipeline to allow for the transition to clean energy. And what is our government doing? Does anyone know? In the face of that evidence that all the world's experts are saying? Nothing. They're worse than nothing. If only they were doing nothing, it wouldn't be as bad. They are promoting more fossil fuel acceleration, expansion. they want to give 100 new licenses for new consents for new oil, coal and gas. And that is genocide. It is absolutely horrendous. It's like the ultimate crime. It's to know the science. Well, if you think 2 billion people being in an uninhabitable planet,
I'll let you finish.
yeah,
I'll let you finish.
okay. And just
And I'm drunk, so
Yeah.
I'm just fundamentally. No.
So
A surprise.
The other thing that I didn't mention is that, so we had before you came, we mentioned a paper that says in 2030 we'll be having 1.5 degrees of global heating, global average surface temperature rise increase above pre-industrial levels, and then that will create 2 billion people living beyond the habitable area of the planet because it will hit so much heat, and 1 billion of those will become refugees to try and escape, to try and survive. But it won't stop there because the fossil fuel burning is accelerating, and when we hit 3 degrees, 80% of the land surface of this planet will be uninhabitable for humans. So refugee crises in the past, right, like the Syrian one that we just talked about, like the Ukraine, right, we've got some refugees coming out of Ukraine. The way we work through refugee crises is they escape, and the model is always that you're trying to look after them till the crisis is over, and then wherever possible they go back home. Yeah, this is not going to be possible if we carry on with global breakdown, because those areas become uninhabitable. They don't become inhabitable for a year or two, they become inhabitable for thousands of years, because the processes we will lock in, we'll be talking about runaway climate change, because we'll be triggering feedback loops which will create more heating. Okay, so we're talking about humanity as we know it. This is what Sir David King says when he says the future of civilization is at stake if we don't make the right decisions in the next 2 years. So this is why we are taking civil resistance together, because that's what the climate science says is necessary, and it's what the social science says is necessary in the face of that. We know without doubt that the governments and the corporations are not going to stop this now. They're not going to stop. Even we know this for a fact because the way they are teaching climate change in GCSEs is that they have to talk about the positives of climate change. They're saying, oh, we're going to be able to grow grapes in the UK. We're going to be able to extract more resources in the Antarctic. As the ice melts, we can get more fossil fuels out of the ground. So they are not going to stop at 3 degrees. They're just going to keep going. So the only way we're going to stop them is through civil resistance, through coming together.
Yeah, we're kind of inside.
You okay?
Yeah, we're going to lose a few people because of smoking inside the marquee. I know that sounds a bit.
Oh,
You
right.
weren't going to like it. You're good at it.
Yeah, so basically, climate science shows that we can make a difference, but the campaigns, like in Birmingham, Alabama, where they had a massive breakthrough with the civil rights movement in the US, which led to the Racial Equality Act the next year, 1964. These breakthroughs came through ordinary people like us, in non-violent campaign, taking peaceful protest, but willing to work through the fear barriers of being criticised for doing what you're doing, being judged, being hated, potentially being attacked, potentially being arrested, potentially being put in prison. Most of the successful campaigns that got us the rights that we take for granted had those ingredients. We would not be having the weekend if we hadn't had our forebears come before us and push for with disruptive action for that right. Same with all of our other rights. So we've just stopped oil, we've got this one demand of no new oil, coal and gas, and the great news is we are winning. The tactics we have used in the last year have taken us from 0 to 92% of the public have now heard of us. The national conversation has changed from one of no one was thinking about and discussing new oil, coal and gas. Now they are. Most of the public, the vast majority of the public, oppose new oil, coal and gas. It's a no-brainer, right? All of the world's experts support it. So what we have achieved is that all of the political parties have now adopted that demand apart from one. Can you guess which one hasn't adopted the demand? Tories.
Tory.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So they are now completely isolated on this issue. They're completely isolated on this issue. They're completely out on a limb. So all we need to do this year, we build on the hard work, the graft that we did last year, the heavy lifting, where 138 people from Just Stop Oil went to prison last year, doing these disruptive actions to get this on the agenda, to get Labour only adopted the demand when we took action day in, day out with people getting arrested every day around Parliament Square. And then suddenly we were in the news every day, and suddenly they adopted the demand. In the same breath, of course, they said, oh, we hate Just Stop Oil, we should lock them all up. But they said, and by the way, we are going to stop new licensing. And our job is to stop societal collapse. Our job is to move this debate forward at the speed and scale required. It's not to be popular. Of course, we want to be popular, but at this point in human history, that isn't a luxury that we have. Thank you. So, with Just Stop Oil, we are building this community and culture of civil resistance together. We have got a strategy going forward, like in Birmingham, Alabama, of just going on these lawful marches. You live in a democracy, you have the right to protest. An entry-level protest is to go on a march. The government is now so in bed with the fossil fuel lobby, they so hate Just Stop Oil, that they are trying to ban us from peaceful marching.
They banned everybody from peaceful marching before you started.
Sorry, that's okay.
I'm gonna shut up.
Let's save the discussion for after.
I'm going to shut up.
Yeah. So our plan is to do what is necessary to get it over the line. All of the political parties have adopted the demand. The major nations of the UK, Scotland, Ireland and Wales have all adopted the demand of no new oil, coal and gas. All the world's exports have been calling for 2 years now. Even the banks are moving away from investing in new fossil fuels. Okay, so it is on the go. We are winning. All we've got to do now is to get it over the line. And so to do that, we just need to get away from this idea of us as an atomized individual, think about how we can do it together. We can work together in whatever, so everyone can contribute in some way. And so this is such a big, complicated problem. What we do is break it down. So the ways people are supporting Just Stop Oil, we've got this plan going forward is that we have these really brilliant non-violence trainings where we get together in a small group of other people that are also telling the truth about the climate emergency and what we can do about it. It's a really empowering day. Encourage everyone to come on this non-violence training. When we've done the non-violence training, those that are up for it, we can go on a march together. And the marching that we're going to do is going to be condensed into a 3-week period. We've just done 13 weeks of marching every single day, and that's the longest sustained campaign of that kind in UK history, where we were taking action every single day for 13 weeks, apart from Sundays. And so we've learned from that. We've learned from what we did with Extinction Rebellion, we've learned from what we did with Insulate Britain, we've learned from all of the campaigns throughout history. And what we're going to do is try and put all of that to practice in the autumn, starting on the 29th of October. We're going to get as many people as possible into action teams, getting with other people that you've connected with, you've trained with, and go on a march together. And that's the plan. It's as simple as that. So the tangible ways people can help is everyone that supports Just Stop Oil, we can make a monthly donation. The reason we do that is because we need to be able to plan ahead to win. We don't want to be reliant on, American millionaires or the odd massive crowdfunder, which gives us an ebb and a flow. People are giving up their careers, stopping their studies to do this full time. They need to be able to know that they can afford to do that. So no one is getting a wage with Just Stop Oil, but we are, where necessary, supporting people to cover their basic costs. We need to make sure people can afford their accommodation, for action and for organising. We need to be able to pay for leaflets and posters and all of the other stuff that is required, the banners, etc. So everyone that supports Just Stop Oil, we can make a monthly donation, whatever level we can afford. People that are in a regular job, give an hour's salary a month. So if you earn £10 a month, you give £10 an hour, you give £10 a month. If you earn £50 an hour, you give £50 a month. But a lot of us aren't even on a regular salary. I volunteer with Just Stop Oil, so I don't have a regular salary, but I give £5 a month because that's what I can afford. So that's what it's a pint of beer a month. I can afford that. So the other thing is that we volunteer. We're a volunteer-led movement. Most people that are working with Just Stop Oil, taking the actions, we volunteer. So that's another thing we encourage people to do. And then the third one is I mentioned this training. Encourage everyone to come on this training. We have a 4-hour training and an 8-hour training. It gives you skills how to stay calm in stressful situations that are relevant to the rest of your life. It's really, really great training. There's no obligation. It's free. Come along to the training and then make the decision on what you might want to do next. And then the last one is if people want to take action together, we want people to join us on these marches. Okay, and we know that it will require some people to work through the fear barrier to the point of arrest, but that's not saying everyone has to get arrested. Everyone has to do what they're called to do, but we want to do it together. Okay? Who would like to, anyone want to share? Do you want to share your experience?
Yeah, I don't mind, yeah. I'm about to stop the drill and I was an anti-fracker and then they put a hold on fracking. So I then supported Just Stop Oil because the oil drill is the same as the fracking drill and it causes just the same amount of damage. I took action with Just Stop Oil because I believe that this government don't have the rights to destroy our earth. We never gave them that permission. They don't get voted in to destroy our earth. We had a big oil spill in Poole in Dorset. There was a little blink on the telly and you've heard no more about it. My fear is that if there's an oil spill that goes into our water system, we're buggered. We have no water. Where do we go to? We're not America where this is proven to happen once before, over and over again in states. They go to the next state and get fresh water. We're a little island. The waters are rising. They're putting holes in our country, which is an island, and it just seems crazy. And if an oil spill gets into our water system, you know, what are we going to do? Go to Europe, pay £30 a bottle of water. It's ridiculous that they're even thinking about doing this when renewable energy is possible. And that's my quote on it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's worth just saying, thank you, Walter. It's worth just saying that the solutions, as I mentioned before, I studied this at university and I focused on sustainability and the solutions to the climate emergency, and the solutions have all existed for decades. I was born in 1972 and there was a book in 1972 about solar power, and it's like it existed then. They were able to, it's like they knew what was possible then. It's now way cheaper to generate electricity from wind and sun than it is from coal, oil and gas. So why are we still subsidising fossil fuels? 236 million a week of our money subsidises fossil fuels. So 236 million a week of our taxpayers' money subsidises fossil fuels. They're cheaper, they're way cheaper.
It's NHS, isn't it?
Yeah, that was exactly the 230 million was on the side of the bus, if you remember, for the NHS with Brexit. A lot of people voted for Brexit because they wanted to save 230 million a week for the NHS. Well, imagine we could save 236 million a week if we stopped subsidising fossil fuels. And that would allow us to transition much more quickly. 50% of our energy is already renewable on the grid now. We need to transition it quicker because that's what the climate science requires. And we start by insulating homes and investing in energy efficiency, so we demand less energy, we meet that energy, reduce demand through